Go to the midsection. Here comes Ziggler. Went for the famous Randy Orton counter. Oh, man! What an RKO! You gotta be kidding me! Oh, did he do it? Did he get it? Oh my God!
The RKO is one of the most popular finishing moves of all time. Having been introduced to the WWE by Randy Orton in 2003, the RKO in essence is a cutter executed more quickly than the traditional cutter that was used throughout the 80s and into the 90s. The RKO has become one of the most protected moves in WWE history, and if it's ever kicked out of, it's presented as a huge deal. Thanks to the RKO Outta Nowhere trend going viral in 2016 on various social media platforms, it became even more famous. And the majority of the time, fans never saw the RKO coming, which made the move even more impactful. But which ones were they? Which was the 10 best RKOs out of nowhere? Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow my other channels Wrestlelamia and Incredible for more videos. Number 10. Hulk Hogan. The SummerSlam 2006 was notable for several reasons. It featured Edge vs John Cena for the title, and it featured DX facing off against the McMahons, and also featured the last ever WWE match of Hulk Hogan. Now, Hogan would face Randy Orton in a rather underwhelming match that received criticism due to the fact that Hogan was booked to beat the young star, which served zero purpose moving forward. Now, although the match was unmemorable, the build towards it featured some entertaining segments and included one of the best early RKOs out of nowhere. During the Saturday night's main event leading to the pay-per-view, Hogan would be leaving the arena with his daughter Brooke Hogan when all of a sudden Orton would hit the RKO and Hogan onto the boot of Hogan's own car. It was shot incredibly well, so you couldn't see Orton coming into shot for the RKO. This was one of the more underrated RKOs out of nowhere, but nevertheless, it's certainly one of the best. Number 9. Neville. The margin for error in ladder matches, such as the Money in the Bank ladder match, are extremely slim. This means that trying spots such as an RKO out of nowhere is extremely risky. However, this is what Randy Orton along with Neville executed to near perfection during the 2015 installment of the popular match type.
Making a play with another vicious RKO! RKO City tonight for Orton!
During the match, as Neville was climbing the ladder to grab the briefcase, Orton would pull him off and hit his pristine-looking RKO out of nowhere. The spot received the biggest reaction of the entire pay-per-view, and Orton looked to the crowd following the spot to soak in the enormous reaction. Ultimately, Orton wasn't able to win the match, as that honor would go to Sheamus. However, most fans remember the RKO spot from the match rather than the actual winner. Number 8. Jeff Hardy. The feud between Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton in 2008 received great reviews from fans at the time. Hardy had become insanely popular, so much so that he was outselling John Cena when it came to merchandise, and fans were clamoring for Hardy to finally get a WWE title run. His first 1v1 match for the title would take place against Orton at the 2008 Royal Rumble pay-per-view. The match was well received and featured one of the most smoothest RKOs out of nowhere in WWE history. As both men reached the 15-minute mark of their match, both were clearly exhausted, so Hardy went for a trademark twist of fate on Orton to finally finish him off.
What is it? Yes, sir. Twist of fate. No. RKO! Oh my God! Twist of fate counter. RKO! Oh my God!
As well as being a great spot and an excellent match finish, it also told a great story. That story being that Orton was preserving his energy until the moment came where he could hit a tired Hardy with the RKO to win the match. Number 7. The Undertaker. Going into The Undertaker's match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania 21, fans had some suspicion that Orton could potentially be the one to finally end The Undertaker's legendary WrestleMania win streak. Orton had just recently become the youngest world champion in WWE history and was being positioned as one of the pillars for WWE's future. Number 6. Dolph Ziggler. One of the best television matches of 2014 was the match between Ziggler and Randy Orton on the October 13th, 2014 edition of Raw. The match was pay-per-view quality and presented Ziggler as a true main eventer, whilst it presented Orton as one of the smoothest wrestlers of all time. The finish of the match involved one of the coolest wrestling counters we've ever seen.
Go to the midsection. Here comes Ziggler. Went for the famous Randy Orton counter. Oh, man! What an RKO!
Ziggler would go for his signature famouser. Orton would then push Ziggler into the air and catch him with an RKO as Ziggler was falling to the ground. The RKO was enough for the victory, and the finish received a huge reaction from the Raw crowd. Number 5. CM Punk. Now, if you're going to hit an RKO out of nowhere, the best possible place to execute it is at WrestleMania, and that is exactly what Randy Orton did in his match against Punk at WrestleMania 27. Now, 27 is notable for being one of the worst Manias of all time. The only standout matches are the match between Triple H and The Undertaker, and also the match between Orton and CM Punk. Now, the match was decent, but the finish of the match was the talking point, down to because of how clever and creative the match finish was. The finish involved Punk going for a springboard clothesline, only for Orton to counter the springboard with an RKO out of nowhere in midair for the WrestleMania victory. Number 4. Carlito. One of the earliest incidents of an RKO out of nowhere was in 2006. Randy Orton would face off in an underrated match with Carlito at the Unforgiven pay-per-view. The match is often forgotten about as it was featured on a card with matches such as Edge vs John Cena in a TLC match and DX taking on the McMahons in the Big Show inside a Hell in a Cell. However, the match is truly great and is arguably Carlito's best match in his entire WWE run. The finish of the match involved Carlito jumping from the middle rope and springboarding off the top rope to perform an aerial attack on Orton. Orton, however, saw this coming and would counter this with a devastating RKO for the victory.
See one flaw in Carlito's. Oh my God! What a RKO!
Just beautiful. Number 3. The Fiend. Out of all the RKOs out of nowhere, Randy Orton had never hit his trademark finisher on a man whilst he was on fire. But that was until 2020's TLC pay-per-view came around. TLC 2020 featured the first ever Firefly Inferno match, where the aim of the match was to set their opponent on fire. And boy, did it leave fans shocked. Whilst the Fiend's back was on fire, the Fiend would chase Orton into the ring, and Orton retorted with an RKO.
The Fiend is still standing! Got it! He's going after Orton! Oh, and an RKO!
It was an amazing visual to see Orton hitting an RKO on a man as he was engulfed by flames, and will no doubt be highlighted in video packages for many years to come. Number 2. Evan Bourne. The Evan Bourne RKO out of nowhere spot has become one of the most famous spots in WWE history. Taking place on Raw in 2010, Randy Orton would somehow counter an airborne into an RKO in mid-air. It was truly a breathtaking moment.
You gotta be kidding me! Oh, did he do it? Did he get it? Oh my God! He caught him in an RKO in midair!
As speaking to Sportskeeda in 2017, Bourne would discuss the legendary RKO, and he would reveal, the hardest thing to do in wrestling is that every time you show up, there's just a ring with 3 ropes, turnbuckles on each side. It's extremely hard to do something to surprise and shock the fans. So I can't tell you the mentality behind this stuff, because that's thousands of hours manifested into one moment. Maybe in the shower or driving down the road that the idea comes and the genius strikes, and sometimes it happens moments before you go to the ring. I'm glad I got to do the spot with Randy Orton because we started a sensation called Out of Nowhere, and people love it when that happens. And number 1, Seth Rollins. The RKO on Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31 is to many WWE fans the greatest RKO of all time. Now, for those who may not be aware, maybe the 1% watching this video, at the end of Rollins and Randy Orton's match at WrestleMania, Orton would counter a curb stomp into an RKO. It's revealed on the Talk is Jericho podcast that the two wrestlers were unable to execute the spot correctly when practicing it earlier in the day. This meant that the first time the spot was performed correctly was in the match itself. Rollins, he was like, yeah, you know what, I always play it safe. I always play it safe every time. And that's great, but let's just try it. To hell with it. I have plenty of WrestleMania matches. They're fine, but I want to have this. Let's just try it. If we can hit it, it'll be awesome. It'll be the greatest thing. Let's just do it. Well, we're glad they certainly did it, and it was one of the best RKOs in WWE history. But there you have it, guys. 10 of the greatest RKOs out of nowhere. Are there any more that we should add to this list? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.